look, it moves. Or rather, not quite, but then the movie moves very nicely. I'm at the 2000 AD booth here, and Judge Dredd, while it hasn't quite made that much money at the American box office, it has made a huge impact on the comic scene here in America, because now everyone who reads comics is into Judge Dredd and getting interested in Judge Dredd, and it's partly thanks to the new movie. So I'm just going to pan down and look at some of the publications from Rebellion and 2000 AD. So you have, of course, the Judge Dredd magazine, and basically decades worth of Judge Dredd collections, drawn by people like Steve Dillon, and just about everyone you have ever heard of in the British comic scene has worked on Judge Dredd. So you have, for example, the Judge Anderson collection. You have Judge Dredd The Pit, which is a self-contained story arc, which is more or less Judge Dredd's version of The Wire and a crime saga. And the latest collections, Grant Morrison and Mark Millar's collaboration on Dredd story arcs back in the 90s. You have Dredd vs. Aliens, and many of the classic collections. And I have with me Ben Smith from Rebellion.
Hi.
Ben, tell us about your job, and let's talk about Judge Dredd and the movie.
Well, my job is the publishing manager for 2000 AD, and Rebellion as the general publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of work with Matt Smith and Fark, and Keith Richardson, the graphic novels editor, and Mike Mulcher, our PR guy, and we basically publish both 2000 AD and the graphic novels in America, in the UK. We sell the foreign rights all internationally, and basically we do. We found over the past couple of years, we launched in America in 2010, and the growth in the American sales over that time has been quite extraordinary, particularly obviously with the movie this year, but the interest level, the amount of contact we have with American comic book stores getting in touch and the rest of it has been wonderful to watch over time, and over the past 2 years has been with the knowledge that the movie is coming and the rest of it, that's helped wonderfully. And you mentioned that the movie hadn't done incredible business at the US box office. I mean, it's an independent movie that doesn't have a Hollywood studio behind it. But it's a movie that everybody measures up against the Avengers, measures up against the Dark Knight, and says it's just as good, if not better. I mean, the number of people who have come up to the booth just this weekend saying how much they love the movie, genuinely love the movie, has been incredible. And so what we're seeing is that's definitely having an effect on his presence and how many of the novels go over here and the interest in it. The number of women readers picking up Judge Anderson books.
I mean, earlier we had a little girl cosplaying as Judge Anderson.
That's right. I'm not quite sure she was quite old enough to have seen the film.
Probably not, but her dad obviously loved the movie.
Yeah, no, she had an absolutely kick-ass Judge Anderson costume. So I mean, that's just indicative. And the number, it's been across the board. The momentum has been fantastic. And so it's a really happy place to be.
Yeah, because there's a different perception between Hollywood and the comic scene, because Hollywood gets a bit snippy and they say, oh, the movie didn't make that much money. However, the movie is basically getting a huge cult following here in America.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it's glowing word of mouth is what everybody says about it. Basically, for us as what's nice about this movie in particular, many great things we think about this film, but in particular, I mean, there was a long contract involved in making sure that a lot of the movie had to do the right things in order for us to sell them the option to make it. But what's great is that the character in the film is demonstrably the character of the comics. Now there are things that are different between the two, but the central core character himself is the same thing, and that's great because there's no disconnect from when somebody's seen the film and then going to read the comic. And certainly for where we sit, we kind of couldn't be happier with the response that we see. Now, I mean, the people who haven't seen the movie yet in the theatres, there's kind of every chance we know that Blu-ray and DVD is going to have a massive effect for this film. So we'll see how. I mean, it's going to be interesting being here in 12 months' time to see when that second stage of the process has gone through. But certainly, we started doing just New York 3 years ago. We've been doing San Diego for a long time.
Yes.
And we sold out last year. So and we're already selling out this year, and it's only Friday. It's kind of we had previews night and half of today, and we're already clearly going to need more stock. So I mean, so from where we're sitting, it kind of, it's difficult to say it couldn't be better, but it feels like it couldn't be better. You know, there's for the crowd who do read comics and are looking to find something new in comics and the rest of it, you know, it's great.
Yeah, for many of them, I think they're discovering Judge Dredd for the first time, because if you just look on Twitter, a lot of people, especially here in America, they say, I went to see Judge Dredd and it's better. It's not only better than I thought it was, it's fantastic and I love it. And I didn't think anyone made films like this anymore.
There was a review of Taken 2. I don't know whether it was INI. It was just in the past few days, which the title of the review was don't go and see Taken 2, go and see Dredd instead.
Yes,
and so it reviewed that, and then the last 3 paragraphs were great. And so and the comments on that thread were fascinating because they were like, my wife is my barometer for whether a film is good, and she fucking loved Judge Dredd and that kind of thing. So it's yeah, you know, it's clearly connecting with people.
Yeah,
you know, which is what kind of all we could hope for.
Yeah, I mean, the film had to do a lot of things, which is chiefly to get closer to the source material and divorce itself from the Stallone film, because I think the problem with the general public, not the comic reading public, is that they only remember the Stallone film, and that in terms of mainstream success, I suspect that's what tainted the film in the eyes of the public.
It might well be. I mean, it's funny also how many people come up to us saying they love the Stallone movie.
Yes.
So that's, you know, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of affection there as well.
Yes.
But I think I mean, obviously they just didn't look to the Stallone movie. They looked to the comics to guide it. But what's sad, but the reason I think everybody's reacting so positive to the movie who's seen it is that it works on it's a movie. It works as a movie. It's not beholden to the comics.
Yes.
It's taken everything that should work in a film and made it work. And you know, if economy could be and it should be a good thing in the movies, it's just the tightest 97 minutes. You've seen there's no fat on the bone or on the meat. It's really you know, it does everything it set out to do, and it hit all the right notes, and it got Dredd over, and it's a great entertaining film.
Yes.
So it's difficult to complain. I wouldn't want to.
Well, yes, and when you look at the credit list of the new Dredd movie, Alex Garland, Carl Urban, I mean Anthony Todd Mantle, who's like one of the greatest cinematographers working right now, and pretty much everyone involved in that movie, when you think about it, is way overqualified to be making what people might think is a B exploitation a futuristic cop show. And basically, it's something that's much bigger than everyone thinks it is. There are nuances in it that are far more subtle.
Yeah.
I mean, I read one person who said when he watched Judge Dredd, he was just expecting an action film, but he said it made him aware of and think about the law and due process than he was ever expecting to do in anything.
Well, I think that's the thing that everybody keeps coming up to saying us is about is, oh man, I wanted the sequels. I wanted to see more of it, because you know the movie begins to set up the richness of Dredd's world, which, as we know from 35 years worth of comics, is just incredibly complex and exciting, and you can do so many different things in it, and so that. You know, they've just begun scratching the surface, and in terms of what the judges are, you know, as a totalitarian force, and the rest of it. And you know, I know Alex Garland is interested in the Judge Dredd America story and pro-democracy terrorists and all that. So that would have been, you know, it would be. There's those people who know the comics and have seen the film and love the film are desperate to see what else they, you know, would make of the world. So we'll see, you know.
And that's good for the sales of the graphic novel, because they're all there. I mean, Oh, here's a quick question: is Judge Dredd Total War still in print?
As an individual volume?
As an individual volume?
I think it is, yes. Although it's shortly, I think, going to reach into the Case Files series. So as they get absorbed into the Case Files, which we're up to 19, 20 is next year, and it'll kind of go that way. I mean, what's fascinating about the Case Files series is, you know, like it's a bit like the really big manga books, is that it's exceptionally unusual to have a series that reaches volume 19 and its sales are as strong as they were in the early numbers. I mean, obviously, because Case Files 1's been out 6-7 years now, it's been the #1 graphic novel in the UK just for the past month alone.
Interesting.
You know, 7 years after it first came out, 35 years after the material was first published.
And that's definitely due to the movie being out.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's also, I mean, certainly in the UK as well, it always sits in the top, very close high up the book-selling charts. But yeah, the movie has just made it. Oh, of course, and they've gone and they've refound it. So yeah, it's as I say, it's great to see it, and that just feeds through. And so when 20 comes out next year, we know it'll be just as big. And so it's
Yep. So onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards, very much so. Yeah. It's a very exciting time, and obviously we've got the IDW Dredd coming out in America. So the monthly format here, which is something they're more familiar with than the rest of it, and so we're working with them to make sure that they're doing Dredd, and doing Dredd, and not doing a version of Dredd. And so that's going to be exciting to see how that goes over. So it's interesting times.
Yep, onwards and upwards. Ben Smith, thanks very much.
Thank you.